You're useless. You can't even handle simple chores, let alone manage a family. Why did I even marry you? Those were the first words Travis said when he finally showed up at the hospital 3 weeks after my accident. His cold, cutting words stung harder than the injuries I'd sustained. For years, I had endured his disdain, but this moment, the complete lack of empathy, was the breaking point. Yet, what he did next left me frozen, unable to comprehend the depth of his cruelty. And no, it wasn't just words this time. Hello. My name is Olivia. I'm 43 years old, a housewife, and I live with my husband, Travis, and our 7-year-old daughter, Sophia. When Travis and I first met, he was everything I thought I wanted. Charming, attentive, and confident, he swept me off my feet. We married within a year of meeting, and for a while, life felt like a dream. Travis would bring me flowers, surprise me with romantic dinners, and promise me a future filled with love and happiness. I left my stable job to support his wishes for a traditional family life. It was a decision I would come to regret. After marriage, Travis transformed. The man who once adored me now treated me like a servant. He expected the house to be spotless, meals ready the moment he walked in, and not a single complaint from my side. Whenever I tried to share my frustrations, he would brush them aside, saying, "You're a housewife. It's not like you're doing real work." Over time, I stopped arguing. I focused on raising Sophia and tried to shield her from Travis's indifference. But the strain was undeniable. Travis changed jobs frequently, blaming everyone else for his lack of stability. I often felt like I was raising two children, Sophia and him. I managed to tolerate his behavior for years, but my patience was wearing thin. Then came the accident, a moment that would change everything. 3 weeks before my accident, my parents called me for an important discussion. I had been avoiding them for months, ashamed of how my life had turned out. But they insisted. "Olivia," my father began, his voice steady but serious, "your mother and I have decided to transfer a portion of our assets to you. It's time you had financial independence." I was stunned. My parents owned a successful import-export business and had accumulated significant wealth over the years. Growing up, I'd always known they planned to pass their legacy on to me. But I hadn't expected it to happen so soon, or to such an extent. "We've decided to transfer $14 million to your account," my father said matter-of-factly. "We're keeping $4 million for ourselves. The rest is for you and Sophia's future." $14 million? I gasped, barely able to comprehend the amount. "But why now?" "We're getting older," my mother chimed in. "And honestly, we're worried about you. We've seen how Travis treats you. We want to make sure you and Sophia are taken care of, no matter what happens." Their words brought tears to my eyes. I had spent years hiding the truth about my marriage from them, but they had noticed. I promised myself that this money would be my lifeline, a way to secure a better future for myself and Sophia. I didn't tell Travis about the inheritance. I knew exactly how he would react. He would demand control of the money, claiming it as his right as my husband. For once, I decided to protect myself. As the days passed, I noticed Travis growing more curious and suspicious. He'd started asking pointed questions about my parents' finances, dropping hints about our family's future. It was only a matter of time before he confronted me. And then came the accident, a cruel twist of fate that left me vulnerable and trapped in the hospital, giving Travis the perfect opportunity to strike. It happened on a quiet Tuesday evening. I had just left the grocery store, bags in hand, my thoughts consumed by my plans for the future. As I crossed the street, a car came speeding around the corner. The blaring horn was the last thing I heard before everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, my legs encased in heavy casts. The pain was unbearable, but the news was worse. Both my legs were broken, and I would need months to recover. I felt helpless, knowing I would be confined to this bed for weeks, reliant on others for everything. My parents and Sophia were my saving grace during those early days. They visited every day, brought me meals, and cared for Sophia while I was incapacitated. But Travis? He didn't show up, not once. He claimed he was too busy with work, though I knew better. It wasn't until the third week of my hospitalization that Travis finally walked through the door. I expected concern, maybe even guilt for his absence. Instead, he greeted me with a scowl. "You've really managed to mess things up this time," he said, standing at the foot of my bed with his arms crossed. "Do you have any idea how much of a burden you've become?" I stared at him, stunned. "A burden?" "I was hit by a car, Travis. I can't walk. How is this my fault?" "Don't start with the excuses," he snapped. "I've been running around like a maniac because of you. The least you could do is make this easier for me." I clenched my fists, trying to keep calm. "How exactly am I supposed to make this easier, Travis? I'm lying here with 2 broken legs." He ignored my question and pulled a chair up to the bed. "Let's get to the point. Your parents. Their money." My stomach sank. I knew where this was going. "I know they're giving you $14 million, he said, his voice cold and demanding. "Don't act surprised. I've known for weeks." I felt my heart pound. "How do you know that?" "That doesn't matter," he replied. "What matters is that you transfer that money to me. You're lying here, completely useless. What are you going to do with all that money? I'm the one running this family. I'm the one who deserves it." I shook my head, anger rising in my chest. "No, Travis. That money is mine. It's for me and Sophia's future, not yours." His face twisted with rage. "You dare say no to me?" He stood up abruptly, pacing the room. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? You're nothing without me, Olivia. Useless." I could feel the tension in the room thickening as his anger boiled over. His eyes darted to the bedside table, where the blood pressure monitor sat. My heart sank as he grabbed it, his knuckles white with fury. Travis turned toward me, the blood pressure monitor clenched tightly in his hands. His face was twisted with rage, his voice rising as he loomed over the bed. "You think you can deny me? You think you have the right to keep that money from me? You're a worthless woman, Olivia. I've carried this family on my back, and this is how you repay me?" My heart raced. I was trapped, broken legs, unable to move, completely vulnerable. "Travis, stop," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "This isn't about you. The money is for Sophia's future, for her security. Don't lecture me," he roared. "You wouldn't even have a future without me. And now you're trying to take what's mine." Before I could say another word, he raised the blood pressure monitor above his head. "You don't get to say no to me, Olivia," he bellowed, bringing it down with terrifying force. I turned my head at the last moment, the monitor smashing into the side of my shoulder and grazing my head before crashing onto the metal bed frame. Pain shot through my body as I cried out, the sound of the impact echoing through the room. The commotion must have alerted the nurses because, within seconds, the door burst open. A nurse and a security guard rushed in, their eyes wide as they took in the scene. Travis, still gripping the now damaged monitor, turned to them, his face pale. "What's going on here?" the nurse demanded, positioning herself between me and Travis. "She provoked me," Travis shouted defensively, dropping the monitor to the floor with a clatter. She's trying to ruin my life." The security guard didn't hesitate. "Sir, step back now," he ordered, grabbing Travis by the arm. "You need to leave." Travis resisted at first, his eyes darting back to me. "You'll regret this, Olivia," he hissed as the guard began to escort him out. "This isn't over." I lay there, trembling, tears streaming down my face. The nurse leaned over me, checking my injuries. "Are you okay, ma'am?" she asked gently. I nodded weakly, though my body ached, and my heart felt like it had been shattered into a million pieces. "Please just keep him away from me." As Travis was dragged out of the room, I felt a mixture of fear and relief. Fear because I knew he wasn't done with me. Relief because I finally saw him for what he truly was, a man who would stop at nothing to control me. But this time, I wouldn't let him win. This time, I would fight back. The next few weeks were some of the hardest of my life. I remained in the hospital, recovering from my injuries, not just the ones caused by the accident, but also the bruises from Travis's attack. My parents and Sophia visited daily, their support giving me the strength to push through the pain. But the emotional scars were harder to heal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Travis standing over me, his face twisted with rage, the blood pressure monitor in his hands. The thought of him returning, trying to take control again, filled me with dread. I knew I couldn't let that happen. One morning, as I sat in bed flipping through my phone, my mother placed a hand on mine. "Olivia," she said softly, "you don't have to go back to him. Not after what he did." "I know, Mom," I replied, my voice steady. "But I need to be smart about this. I need to make sure Sophia and I are safe, and that Travis pays for what he's done." Over the next few days, I began to piece together my plan. I filed a police report against Travis for assault, with the nurse and security guard from the hospital as witnesses. My parents helped me gather financial records and other documentation that proved his negligence and abusive behavior. I reached out to a lawyer, a sharp and determined woman named Claire Reynolds, who promised to help me not only secure a divorce, but also hold Travis accountable for his crimes. "You have a strong case," Claire assured me during one of our meetings. "With the witnesses and the hospital records, he won't walk away from this." As the legal proceedings began, I focused on my recovery. Physical therapy was grueling, but every step I took, literally and figuratively, felt like a victory. My parents' unwavering support and Sophia's bright smiles reminded me of what I was fighting for. One day, as I watched Sophia play with her grandparents in the hospital courtyard, I realized something profound. I wasn't just fighting for justice. I was fighting to reclaim my life, to show Sophia that no one has the right to strip us of our dignity and safety. Meanwhile, Travis's life was unraveling. The assault charges meant he couldn't approach me or Sophia, and the inheritance money remained firmly out of his reach. He called me several times, alternating between apologies and threats, but I ignored him. Each time I heard his voice on the voicemail, I felt a mix of anger and satisfaction. He was losing, and he knew it. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted more than distance. I wanted justice. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I felt a mix of nerves and determination. Claire walked beside me as we entered the courtroom, her confident stride reassuring me that I wasn't alone in this fight. My parents were seated in the gallery, their presence a constant source of support. Sophia, too young to understand the details, stayed at home with a trusted babysitter. Travis sat on the other side of the courtroom, looking haggard and worn. His lawyer whispered hurriedly in his ear, but his smug demeanor from our earlier encounters was gone. This time, he wasn't in control. Claire began by laying out the events of the hospital assault in meticulous detail. The nurse and the security guard testified, recounting the violent incident with clarity and precision. Hospital records were submitted as evidence, showing the bruises and injuries I sustained during Travis's attack. As the testimony continued, Claire shifted focus to the broader pattern of abuse I had endured over the years. She presented financial records, emails, and text messages that painted a clear picture of Travis's neglect and manipulation. Finally, Claire addressed the inheritance. "Your Honor," she said, "this man's greed knew no bounds. He attempted to coerce my client into transferring her rightful inheritance, $14 million, to him. When she refused, he resorted to violence. This was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of years of emotional and financial abuse. Travis's lawyer tried to downplay the severity of the assault, claiming it was a moment of frustration and that Travis had apologized. But the evidence was overwhelming. The judge's disapproving gaze bore into Travis as the prosecutor presented the facts. Travis took the stand, attempting to shift blame onto me. "She's exaggerating," he said, his voice wavering. "I've done everything for this family. She's the one who refused to support me." Claire didn't let him off the hook. Her cross-examination was brutal, forcing him to admit his repeated failures as a husband and father. By the end of it, Travis's defenses had crumbled. After days of testimony and deliberation, the judge delivered the verdict. Travis was found guilty of assault and coercion. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay a significant fine, part of which would go toward my recovery expenses. Additionally, the court granted me full custody of Sophia, with Travis prohibited from contacting us without court approval. The divorce was finalized, and the inheritance remained solely in my name. As the gavel struck, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Justice had been served. Leaving the courtroom, I took a deep breath of the crisp afternoon air. For the first time in years, I felt free. My parents hugged me tightly, their pride evident in their smiles. Sophia ran to me when I got home, her laughter a reminder of why I had fought so hard. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life. I moved into a new home, one filled with warmth and love. My inheritance allowed me to provide Sophia with a bright future while also pursuing passions I had long neglected. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, using my experience to help others escape toxic relationships. Sophia thrived in the peaceful environment, her laughter filling the house daily. And as I watched her grow, I knew I had done the right thing, not just for her, but for myself. The past had left its scars, but it also taught me to value my strength. Travis was a chapter of my life that was now closed. My story wasn't about the pain he caused. It was about the resilience I discovered and the life I built despite it.